Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MTGOTraders. My name is Taryn, and this is Mono Blue Mill for Core Set 2019 Standard. So it's finally here, the first standard deck tech of the new standard season, or format, I guess you could say, not season. And of course you guys knew it was going to be a mill deck, and this is Mono Blue Mill, basically the Aetherflux Reservoir deck, but like retooled to be a Psychic Corrosion mill deck. So let's jump right into the video, guys. Starting with our creatures, there are 8 in total in the main board here: Ornithopter, Glint, Nest Crane, and Psy Master Thopterus. Psy Master Thopterus being a new card from Core Set 2019. 3 mana, 1/4 legendary creature, human artificer. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. You can also pay 2, sacrifice 2 artifacts, and draw a card. Psy here is to basically keep back blockers. Also kind of turns into a way to win the game, like an alternate win condition if you have a lot of attackers and your opponent has nothing to deal with them. But also just a great way to draw some cards as well, because Psychic Corrosion is the main like mill mechanic in the deck list here for us to be able to mill our opponent to death. So drawing a card means our opponent is putting the top 2 cards of their library into the graveyard, and Psy is helping us draw cards by sacrificing artifacts that it creates by itself. Ornithopter and Glint, Nest Crane are great here for us, being great blockers, a free creature, as well as just a great way to dig deeper for artifacts we need in our deck list. Moving up here to our spells here, 10 in total. We have Paradoxical Outcome, Reverse Engineer, Metallic Rebuke, and Baral's Expertise. Expertise is here to bounce any artifacts we don't like, any creatures we don't like, as well as getting out a free spell, basically getting out our Psychic Corrosion, because it can be converted mana cost 4 or less from your hand, so getting a Psychic Corrosion out with Baral's Expertise is super nice in the main game 1 play. A Metallic Rebuke is here as a great turn 2 like kind of a counter, or a great like board wipe or removal or anything like that. Just a basic good counter. Just basically a good counter to keep opponents back. And then Reverse Engineer is a great way to draw 3 cards for just 2 mana, because you can tap artifacts with Improvise. And Paradoxical Outcome, another great way to draw cards as well. This is the main draw engine of the deck here, basically bouncing all the artifacts to your hand, drawing a ton of cards, replaying artifacts, bouncing them again with Paradoxical Outcome. Moving up here to our artifacts, we have 16 in total. We have 4 Mox Amber, 4 Renegade Map, 4 Prophetic Prism, which draws us another card, and 4 Inspiring Statuary. Love Statuary here because it turns on everything else on our deck. So as soon as this comes down on turn 3, we can use all the artifacts to help cast other non-creature or non-artifact spells, non-artifact spells. Mox Amber is here if we have Psy on the battlefield. It can tap for blue mana, but if we don't, we can use it as a tap ability for Inspiring Statuary. Same thing for Prison, same thing for Renegade Map. But Renegade Map is also here to help us kind of keep our mana curve fairly low, as well as playing artifacts and just being able to sack and make our deck a little bit thinner, getting out Psychic Corrosions and other things like that. Moving up here with it, we have our enchantments here. We have Psychic Corrosion and Patient Rebuilding. These are our 2 mill mechanics in the deck list: 4 Psychic Corrosion and 2 Patient Rebuilding. Psychic Corrosion is a 3 mana enchantment. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. And Patient Rebuilding is, you can pay 5, it's an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, target opponent puts the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard. Then you draw a card for each land card put into the graveyard this way. So if you have both of them on the battlefield, they're pitching 5 cards into the graveyard. Like, that's just the start. And you're also drawing cards if any of them, or if the 3 from Patient Rebuilding are lands. And then once you draw cards from that, more cards go into the graveyard because of Psychic Corrosion, you know, drawing us cards and putting their cards from the top of their library to the graveyard. So really good combo here with these 2. Patient Rebuilding is not as good as Psychic Corrosion as far as like being able to kind of mill more quickly. However, if they don't have any kind of enchantment hate or non-land permanent hate, Patient Rebuilding will ultimately win you the game, because it gives you a ton of card advantage if you get into a lot of lands from their deck list. But that is it for all the cards in the main board in game 1. Let's go to lands really quickly. We have 20 lands in total: 14 Island, 4 Ipni Rivulet, 1 Arc of Vraska, and 1 Inventor Sphere. Inventor Sphere is here basically to kind of tutor out an Ornithopter or something like that, or a Mox Amber if we need to, or, you know, just gain 1 life every upkeep if we have 3 more artifacts. So that's very, very important for that. And Arc of Vraska, we're going to get like the City's Blessing like almost immediately by turn 4 or 5. So Arc of Vraska is here for that. And Ipni Rivulet is just a great way for us to kind of close out a match by putting, 4 cards from their library to the graveyard to hopefully, bridge that gap into getting them down to 0 cards in their library. Let's move on to our sideboard here really quickly. We have 15 cards in total, of course. We have Filigree Familiar, Disallow, Scavenger Grounds, and Psy Master Thopters. So a full playset of Psys here against more like mono red aggro decks, anything with a lot of attackers. Mono green Stompy is basically the bane of this deck right here, besides you know, having cards like Brawl's Expertise and things like that, because a lot of those creatures have trample, and you know, Galta, Primal Hunger, that kind of thing. A 12/12 trample really does hurt us a lot, so bringing in things like Disallow and the Familiar help us out in that particular matchup. Scavenger Grounds, that was also very good against the more control-heavy matchups, because they do have Commit to Memory in the main board or sideboard usually in those matchups, so good on that. As well as if they have like Scrappy Scrounger, stuff like that as well, very, very good to bring in. But the Familiar here is super interesting because it's a 3-mana 2/2. It's an artifact, so it actually triggers creating a 1/1 here. But when it does die, we get to draw a card, and when it enters the battlefield, we gain 2 life. So it's just doing a lot of things for 3 mana, so very, very good for us. And Disallow can, you know, of course, counter a spell or counter an activated ability, which could be like a Planeswalker Ultimate or something like that. Moving up here, we have Aetherflux, Reservoir, and Reverse Engineer. So the Reservoirs here, if our mill strategy isn't working that well, and we need to get into a secondary win condition, we take out Patient Rebuilding, we put in Aetherflux, Reservoir, and then we kind of put in Reverse Engineer if we need to, and Reverse Rebuke to keep away a token-based strategy, a super go-wide strategy, or if they're playing a Planeswalker-based strategy, Reverse Rebuke is also very, very good at getting those cards back into their hand for a turn or two until we can mill them out to you know, to a win. But that is the full 75. Let's go to the full deck list here. Got the full layout here. If you want to build this on MTGO, it's actually coming to about 25 tickets on MTGOTraders. And if you want to build this in paper, it's coming to just at $100 in paper price. So not too bad at all. So kind of budget there both ways. But yeah, 25 tickets on MTGO. So if you want to try this out, super cheap and super fun. Let's get into the deck. So without further ado, let's get into our matches, guys, and I'll see you after that. All right, guys, let's get into some matches here. We're starting with match 1. I think this is the most complicated match out of the 4 matches here I posted, one of which is, of course, a Salt Scoop, because, of course, I had to include it. But this is a sped up for you guys. This is a Planeswalker style deck I'm playing up against. I kind of thought it was going to be a discard style deck based on their first 3 turns, because they had Durest, then Divest, and then they had Mind Rot right after that. But Psychic Corrosion's coming down on turn 3, so very good card for us. I'm glad they didn't get rid of it in Durest there. Yeah, Mind Rot right there, so we have to get rid of 2. We draw into a Brawl's Expertise, super good for us in this particular situation, as well as starting to mill them down in game 1. Getting out the Prophetic Prism. Again, this deck is all about drawing cards as quickly as possible, so Psychic Corrosion is going to be a great card for us to mill our opponent to death, and cards like Prophetic Prism and all that kind of stuff is going to help us. Every time we draw a card, they mill 2. So Nissa on their side's coming down. They go for a +2 on Nissa. They then go for 0. I feel like they probably should have gone for a +2 there instead of 0. We go for a Paradoxical Outcome because we're very light on cards in our hand. So drawing 2 cards, or a card there, thanks to bouncing the Prophetic Prism back into our hand. That does cause us to have the ability to replay the Prisms again, drawing 2 cards from that. They go for a Nicol Bolas here, and then they go to a Psy, because they get the Psy off the top of our deck. We have Baral's Expertise, so we can go Baral, grab the Psy from their side, and then recast it directly from our hand. So a great interaction there for us, thankfully. We can't really have a Prism come out right after that. We don't have enough mana for that, but we can the following turn as long as the Psy survives, which it does. They go with Karn, so they have 3 Planeswalkers against our Psy here. They grab a Thopter off the top, and they make an artifact creature. We go Prism, make a Thopter, draw into Reverse Engineer, which is super good, and then go for another Prism, go into Reverse Engineer here. Could have gone for a Prophetic Prism, or Psychic Corrosion, not Prophetic Prism, Psychic Corrosion there, and, you know, done a double thing. But we get into another Reverse Engineer, so we're just going to do that again the following turns. So the opponent goes for a Karn there. We give them a land, 3 cards in their hand here. They, yeah, grab another artifact of Duress off the top. They get rid of Psychic Corrosion. I feel like Reverse Engineer was the pick they should have gone with, but, you know, whatever. 2 Fatal Pushes there on our Thopters. We have, let's see, Prophetic Prism there. Because we have Inspiring Statuary in our hand, we could go for that as well. But I think we're going to go for a Reverse Engineer here, just drawing 3 cards. Laying a land, got into Patient Rebuilding, which is another one of those mill cards for us. And we have enough mana to go for Nicol Bolas is at 13 there, so we're trying to think what we want to play here. Probably nothing. We're just going to go for a mill against them. because once they go with the ultimate on Nicol Bolas, it kills everything on our side of the field. So having Ipni Rivulet in our lands here really does help us out a ton. And they're down to basically nothing in their deck list, so we're going to win this match no problem since we are at 19 life. So they do crash in here for 4. We go for a land drop, and then we can go for Baral, we can go for Renegade. I think we just go for Ipni Rivulet here, drop them down to 0 because we can, and then just pass the turn back, and then they auto lose. Some super good way to kind of work around that match. Even though they had a ton of powerful planeswalkers, we still made it through with Psy, and of course Psychic Corrosion drawing us lots of cards with cards like Reverse Engineer. We take out Glint Nest Crane. We think about bringing in River's Rebuke, but we keep that out for this particular turn. We bring in Disallow instead, taking out Reverse Engineer, bringing in the Reservoir. Should have brought in River's Rebuke in Game 2. We eventually do bring it into Game 3, because spoiler alert, we do lose this match. But it's a super fun match to watch regardless, because the opponent's super aggressive in this particular game here. So we go for a land, and then I'm just playing some more lands here. Trying to get into a turn 3 Psy and then playing out our artifacts. We don't want to play our artifacts too quickly. Again, playing artifacts like Prism without Psychic Corrosion or Psy is just kind of a nothing. That really only helps us kind of get into land if we need to. They go Nissa, go to 3 with the Scry there. We're going to go with a Psychic Corrosion because we want to get the mill going as quickly as possible. Should have went for Psy there because of the follow-up artifacts we could play. They go Divest because that automatically gets rid of Psy. That's the biggest threat in our entire hand here, so kind of sad that happens, but it happens. They go up to 5 here, I believe, on Nissa, yes. We go Psychic Corrosion, that's starting to go off now, but we're kind of out of gas, sort of. We do have Paradoxical Outcome in our hand to help us kind of, move forward throughout the match thanks to everything else in our hand, so we're going to go and try and do that the following turn. They get Nissa up to 7 here, which means Nissa is ready to go for her ultimate, attacking in. So we're going to go with Prophetic Prism, and then Renegade Map, then Ornithopter, and then go Paradoxical Outcome, draw a bunch of stuff by bouncing 3 permanents, and casting it with Inspiring Statuary, and then just recasting the Thopter and the Renegade Map again, because we have more Paradoxical Outcomes in our hand. They lay a land, and they're going for, I believe, let's see here. Yeah, they go for a Vraska, which Vraska auto-destroys the Psychic Corrosion. This is why we lose the match ultimately, is because of Vraska here. Also the flyers there, that's super important too. Go for Prophetic Prism, draw a card, another Statuary. And we have enough here for a 1-of Paradoxical Outcome, drawing into stuff. We have to discard stuff unless we start playing stuff from our hand. Yeah, we still have to discard here. We're going to discard an Inspiring Statuary. But we do have Patient Rebuilding in our hand. It can be useful at getting back in the match. But again, because of Vraska's like -3 here, it really does put us far behind. And then you'll see that they also have an enchantment that comes in, Oath of Teferi, meaning they can do their Planeswalker abilities twice in a single turn, which means they can go plus, make a dude, and also destroy an artifact, which is our enchantment as well, which is super painful for us. So that's exactly what they did that turn. We lay a land, go for Patient Rebuilding, but we know we're not long for this world at this point in the match. Would really like to get into another Psy if we could, but I don't believe we pulled into another Psy from the sideboard into the main board in Game 2 here. It kind of read Oath of Teferi there going, well, I mean, we're basically dead here. We have some stuff we can do here. They can go Nissa +2, and then also swing in for Nissa. Let's put this down to 10. They don't do that, though. They go for a 0 here, which is strange. Then they go Scry 2. So I feel like they probably should have just done Scry 2, then Ultimate, and swing in for 10 there. But they also have Angrath here, which makes us discard 2 cards. So it just kind of started to pile on here, and I was really kind of swearing at myself that I should have brought in River's Rebuke from Game 1 into Game 2. But I do change that once Game 3 happens here, which is really soon. So Patient Rebuilding here. Again, if a land goes in the graveyard from the top 3, we actually do get to draw a card, so we get to draw extra cards. So it goes really nicely with a Psychic Corrosion. We get to draw 3 cards there, which is super good. We go Statuary, we go Ornithopters. We have Psychic Corrosion in our hand. We try to go for that. And then we have Paradoxical Outcome. The one thing here we could do is we could just mill a little bit, since that is our deck. And yeah, there we go. Mill down to 21 here. And then just start playing out the Ornithopters. We have Sai in our hand now, so we really need to get that out if we could, but it's really going to be challenging because this is basically the end of the match. Our real fault here was playing Sai out this turn and having our Ornithopters tap down because we really don't have any way to block those flyers. We do have Thopters here, so we can create those, so that's good for us. But you'll see the next turn here that opponent just has all the answers. They have all the answers. So, yeah, nothing else in our hand here. Aetherflux Reservoir is a great way for us to come back in this match as far as life goes. So it could be a great way for us to bounce back if we last this turn. But they have, you know, kill spell with Vraska here. And, yeah, just destroy everything, kill Vraska. And then they have a second Vraska in hand, I believe, coming in right now. Yep, there's the second Vraska. And they just destroy everything. They go plus twice here, so not too terrible. Make us discard 2 cards here. And then scry, and then they just go for the ultimate. We're at 5 life, and that's going to be game in game 2. So let's get into game 3 here. In the sideboard, we're going to bring in River's Rebuke, and I believe we take out Reverse Engineer. No, Inspiring Statuary, and 1 Reverse Engineer, I believe. Patient Rebuilding is useful, but again, that Vraska really does hurt us a lot. So I think about taking out River's Rebuke, but ultimately I decided on taking out Reverse Engineer. Really need River's Rebuke because it's non-land permanents that it bounces as well. So pretty good keep, honestly, for what we have. We have a turn 1 Metallic Rebuke if we need it. So that's not too bad at all. The only bad thing here is, of course, is we need a 3rd land drop. And we do hit it on the draw there, so awesome for us. Opponent being a little slow in this particular match here with tap lands, so we're going to go for Psychic Corrosion immediately. We could have held up for a Metallic Rebuke on turn 3, but all their threats are always going to be on turn 4 or later. They could have gone for Nissa there, I believe, if they didn't have a tap land, but we do play it really safe here with holding up our Metallic Rebuke and having our blocker, of course, Ornithopter on the battlefield as well. And Psychic Corrosion is just going to kind of naturally mill them to death. Oath of Ajani is hitting the battlefield. That helps them kind of cast their Planeswalkers a little bit more easily. We're not going to go for Rebuke on that. We want to go for Rebuke on the Planeswalkers themselves. So we want to make sure if they do cast out a Planeswalker like Nissa here, that we rebuke that and make sure that it doesn't hit the battlefield, because those can definitely, you know, end the match really quickly. So we try and hold out on that. Getting into lands is not great here. It is really nice, though, that we're getting close to our City's Blessing with Arc Vraska, being able to draw 2 cards in a turn. But we are being really slow in this particular match here, so we really need to step up. They go for Divest, but they can't grab the Rebuke, so they really need a Duress for that, or a Mind Rot at that moment. We go for Prophetic Prism. We do hit our City's Blessing this turn. Draw an additional card. Psychic Corrosion hits 2 into the graveyard again. You'll notice that Vraska and stuff like that is also in the graveyard. They have a Braid for the Prison there. I don't really understand why they did that. We have Disallow in our hand, which is fantastic. They have this card right here, which we want to disallow immediately, because once that's flipped, it can be a pain in the butt to deal with. We're just going to draw a card here because they have nothing really to do. And opponent didn't get too much because we keep milling away their lands, if you'll notice, from the graveyard. So they're hitting their 4th land drop here. We have 8 land on the battlefield for ourselves. Prophetic Prism for us, drawing some more cards. Paradoxical Outcome is also in our hand, so we can continue to draw some stuff this turn, which is exactly what we're going to be doing. But also playing Inspiring Statuary as well, because it makes everything cheaper for us to cast. So making it so we can tap, you know, all these and only tap 1 blue mana from our side of the field. Being able to replay that Prism as well, so... Opponent, though, has a Braid, so they go for a Braid on that Statuary, which makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of bounce back from that, but still fine, still fine. We're going to go for our Ornithopter, our Prophetic Prism, draw another card, and lay a land, and get another Inspiring Statuary in our hand here. So, opponent, again, being really slow. They have Mind Rot. We have Rebuke and Rebuilding and Statuary in our hand, so all very useful. Ultimately, we can discard the Rebuke because it's so late in the game now that even if they do play a Planeswalker, we basically have the match. So we discard the Statuary and Rebuke, keep Impatient Rebuilding, because we do know that, you know, faster mill is going to be the way out of here. So we just go for Patient Rebuilding and then just sack an Infinite Rivulet, being like, well, next turn they're going to lose 7 cards and possibly more if there's any land in those, because we draw cards from that. And then Infinite Rivulet, so that's going to end the match there for us on that match. So really well for us. Worked out really well. And drawing into Psychic Corrosion. And that is it for match 1 there. Let's get into match 2 and see what we can do. Really like that really intensive match in match 1. Lots of interactions there. And seeing that, you know, this deck can actually do stuff and keep opponents back. So game 2 here, or match 2 here, going for a Renegade map on turn 1. So super nice. We are going up against a mono-white life gain deck. So lots of stuff for them to be able to go over our little flyers here, like Ajani's Pridemate and things like that. We have a Metallic Rebuke, and we get to actually get rid of that Ajani's Pridemate, the early one here. And we have you know, Psychic Corrosion in our hand here. So if we don't get into a land here, it's going to suck. But we do have Renegade map to make sure we do hit our 3rd land drop. So Psychic Corrosion is coming in. And then all we do now is basically just play out Psychic Corrosion. And as soon as we get our Patient Rebuilding out, we get that out as well. So this deck does have cards like Sacred Cat and not Adorn Pouncer, the 1/3 that it has in Bomb as well. The token, a Life Giver, so lots of good things for them. So things that go into the graveyard for them might actually be useful later in the match, but it's not really that big of a concern to us at this moment. So we're really just going to focus on making sure we can block their 1-power toughness or 1-power attack creatures, and get out our mill strategy as quickly as possible. So Inspiring Statuary is nice here. We're basically giving us the only option is that that's the only option to play besides a Patient Rebuilding here, or a Reverse Engineer. So we opt to go for Reverse Engineer, play a land, and pass turn. Because we have 2 Psychic Corrosions, that's you know, lots of triggers there. They go for a Ajani's Pridemate, then Anointer Priest. Anointer Priest was the card I was talking about earlier. And then they go with an Embalmed Sacred Cat. That's a card that came back from the graveyard that we actually milled them into. They're up to 30. We're down to 15, so we do need to get into something like a Baral's Expertise or something like that. We have a Glitness Crane here as a nice blocker. Mox Amber is there is also being useful for us. And we think about Paradoxical Outcome here, which is exactly what we do. Drawing 2 cards, replaying the Amber and the Ornithopter, and getting a land as well. And Baral's Expertise also gets into our hand too, so lots of stuff. Opponent down to, I believe, 17 cards right now, so it's working super fast. It's only turn, I think it's 6 right now, so lots of good stuff going on. Opponent's going super wide at the moment, going super big with their Ajani's Pridemate, and then they just swing out like a madman because they have to, because they're on a clock. I can respect that. We go with the block here and block the giant Pridemate, and then make sure our Ornithopter actually survives. For a follow-up, if we need to, for a Paradoxical Outcome. Go for Prophetic Prism, draw a card, they mill 2 or 4, and then Baral's Expertise, and that's actually it. They actually get milled to death by the next turn. So they actually scoop it up, and then we go for Side Master Thopters in, take out Glitness Crane, and bring in River's Rebuke, take out Patient Rebuilding. And bring in Scavenger Grounds, take out an Island, and Ark of Araska, because we want to make sure we can prioritize those animations or reanimations from the graveyard. So a decent keep for us, a good turn 3 Side coming in as well. This is one of the matches where it actually shows off that Side is actually a huge threat on the battlefield if an opponent does not have any answers to it. Because we actually don't mill our opponent this game. We actually just attack them out with Side Thopters forever and ever. So huge threat on the board here. Side coming in on turn 3. We also have Mox Amber coming in as well, making a Thopter, and then Renegade map with the tapped Mox Amber. We could have played the second Mox Amber, but wanted to save that for a follow-up play. So 2 Thopters here to be able to block the Sacred Cat as well as the Vampire. So we just go with a block here on the trade, because again, we're creating Thopters just by playing artifacts naturally, so we're being able to you know, block them forever and ever. Go Reverse Engineer here, 1 land. Up for us. Prophetic Prism and Inspiring Statuary are great cards to get into at this moment. And then we just pass turn here. So trying to make sure we can get up as many things as possible before they start to go super wide. So we have enough mana here for a Prophetic Prism or for a Paradoxical Outcome. We decide to go Baral's Expertise and then Inspiring Statuary right after that. To make sure we get another Thopter. We bounce their entire board state again because we want to make sure that we're slowing them down slightly. Looking at the line of play there. Not getting into any of our Psychic Corrosions just yet, but that's all right. Side Master Thopters was really useful for us. They do go for a Invoke the Divine, I believe that's called, or just the card that exiles the Inspiring Statuary. Prophetic Prism here, drawing a card, and we go for the Paradoxical Outcome to bounce a bunch of stuff here. To draw a bunch of cards as well as just replay stuff again. Keep in mind the Mox Ambers are super useful in this particular situation because we can use them to tap for mana thanks to Side being on the battlefield. So we're up to 7 Thopters on the battlefield now. So just a ton of stuff going on here. We decide to hold the Mox Amber in our hand, but I do discard a land at the end of this turn here, so not too terrible. Opponent down to 18, and they decided to scoop it up because we have tons of attackers. So that's nice for us. Let's get into match 3 here and see what we can do. Again, a kind of okay hand. I would probably not have kept this had we not had Psy and then the Ornithopters in hand. So this is kind of a sketchy hand. If we don't head into a third land drop for turn 3, then I would be really upset about this. But we do hit Mox Amber. We do go into a Prophetic Prism here to make sure we can get into a nice land as well. So I believe we lose this match. This is the Sarkhan Unsealing deck here. Psy coming in, and then we just go Thopter, Mox Amber, and make a giant army on turn 3. So there you go, 3 Thopters in the air, 2 Thopters that are 0/2s for 0. And Paradoxical Outcome can be next turn because of Mox Amber there. Ronos on their side of the field. We're just going to bounce everything and have up 1 land. And then just replay everything because we have an army. Again, Psymaster Thopterus, I feel like, is a really below the radar card right now. Just a super good card in Standard at the moment. I feel like this card is really good in the Aetherflux Reservoir deck, and it makes a really good home in this particular Psychic Corrosion deck. So let's see what they get into here. Turn 4, they go for the Sarkhan. I think it's Unsealing or Unbroken or something like that. Go for a land. We have Baral's Expertise. We can't bounce the enchantments. That's one of the drawbacks to Baral's Expertise. So we try to go for as many attackers as we can here. So we go for Statuary, and then go for a Renegade map, and have 1 blue mana up. So we could just go for a Psychic Corrosion here, which is fine, or we can hold up a Metallic Rebuke. I decided to go for Psychic Corrosion. We also have Mox Amber here for the Metallic Rebuke, because we do hold back the Ornithopters. Also the Thopters that can attack this turn, for the ability to, get rid of a large creature coming into the battlefield. They go for a Llanowar Elf, though. They have 9 life, and that's basically going to be it, unless they have something, and they don't. They hope to top deck a, I believe they wanted to top deck a Traxos there, but didn't get into it. We bring in Disallow, take out the Reverse Engineers. I believe we take out Disallow again, bring in River's Rebuke because of that enchantment. So, just a very painful card to deal with in this match. We bottom River's Rebuke there, having 2 lands. We do have to mulligan there, but got a decent opening hand with a Mox Amber and then a Glint-Nest Crane. Paradoxical Outcome is a kind of difficult card to get into, honestly, because we don't have 4 lands, and we don't see a Psy just yet, so slowing us down a little bit. There is a Psy, though, so we do need to get into a land if we can. Llanowar Elf from them, Ornithopter off the top there. And we play that out because we want to make sure we can have some blockers for their attackers here. Don't want to prioritize those just yet. They go for Steel Leaf Champion, which hurts us a ton. So we want to go for a Renegade map. We didn't get into a land there, so this is going to hurt us a lot. Keep in mind, the Steel Leaf Champion can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, so our Thopters are basically useless against Steel Leaf Champion. The only way that we actually win this match is if we go for Baral's Expertise and start bouncing. But it's kind of over at this point in the match. They have a Sarkhan enchantment coming in and a land, so we do go for Baral's Expertise or River's Rebuke. They get to recast the Steel Leaf Champion, which hurts us majorly, which is really hard for us to kind of deal with. So we do have to go for it, though, because we have to survive for a turn because we're at 10 life. We go for Paradoxical Outcome and bounce all of our creatures here and draw some extra stuff. We go for Mox Amber once again, and then for the Ornithopter. And then we could have played the Ipni Rivulet there, but I feel like I passed turn without realizing that. Attacked in and passed turn here. Yeah, I should have played the Ipni Rivulet. That was a misplay on my part. We could have got the Glint-Nest Crane out on that turn, but it really wouldn't have done much as far as pushing us forward in the match because the opponent just had nothing but gas forever. So we're going to go with a, I believe Inspiring Statuary maybe? Yeah, Inspiring Statuary, and then a Glint-Nest Crane thanks to Inspiring Statuary. Grabbing a Ornithopter, playing that out, and then I think we should have attacked in there for 3, but we didn't. We passed turn here, holding up. And then opponent just top decks into a Traxos, and Traxos is 7 power, which clears our entire board state and gets us down to 6, which is just within reach of death, and we scoop it up. I'm telling you, man, that Sarkhan enchantment is ridiculous. I feel like it's going to be in a really good Gruul deck somewhere. in Standard. I haven't really made a list out of it myself, but I think that card is super good and needs to see a lot of play, or a lot of testing at least. Even though it doesn't do anything the turn it's played on turn 4 or 3, I do think it's still very, very powerful. Especially when you can just board wipe an entire board state. It's just backbreaking. We actually mulligan down to 5, have a horrible hand, but do have a blue mana off the top, so we do have Metallic Rebuke. So this is one of the things where the deck can actually just go the wrong way as far as you getting the pieces you need to make sure the deck works. So we do have Metallic Rebuke here for anything that they throw our way, which would be Heart of Kieran, which I was very strange, like kind of thrown off by. But did Metallic Rebuke it because Heart of Kieran is a huge threat if they have anything in the battlefield like a Ronos or something like that. Go for a land and just pass turn. You'll see that I just start drawing lands and Mox Ambers forever, and that's basically it for this third match. We do lose this match, but you know, it's just interesting to see how the Sarkhan deck works, especially when they hit that Traxos, because I feel like that was probably a top deck on their behalf. But the first game on this one worked really well for us as far as milling and just making lots of attackers, because they were just a little slow, just a little tiny bit slow. But yeah, getting into a Mox Amber here really has hurt us. We just can't play multiples unless we have Psy, which gives us mana, you know. And then they just play land more often, they attack in, and then we don't block for right now because we want to make sure we have ways to kind of slow down a little bit. We go for Brawl's Expertise, and then we just say no on the casting, and then pass turn once again. Brawl does keep us alive for a few turns, but you know, we really need to get into some Psychic Corrosion, something to slow them down. Getting into another land here is not exactly what you want to be happening in this match. So we're just starting off really badly. 4 lands here, 7 cards in hand, and I believe we see, let's see, yeah, we see the Sarkhan enchantment once again. So that can kind of, you know, be alarm bells. It's saying, you know, there's a Still Leaf Champion coming in, there's a Traxos coming in, something like that. We do have Psychic Corrosion at this point in the match, but we are at 12 life, and it's still, you know, very unlikely for us to come back. But we're going to try as hard as we can. But there's a Goreclaw there. Goreclaw's super good. They go for 4 to our face, which is very, very hurtful. Did not like that at all. And then they have Scourge here. And I thought about scooping at that moment, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to play out just a little bit more. But as soon as Goreclaw attacks, it doesn't matter because they have the ability here to give everything trample. So it doesn't really matter. I'm just kind of playing out the turn. But that's going to do it for this particular match here. Very sad, very sad. They earn this for sure, because the Sarkhan enchantment is a little slow, but super impactful if you can get it going. So let's get on to match 4 here. And match 4, I believe, is the last one of the video here, guys. And this is going to be definitely a salt scoop. I'm not sure if I caught it in the chat here. One of the actual testings I was recording, and the opponent was very salty about me top decking into Psychic Corrosions and Patient Rebuilding and stuff like that. So it's just really funny to see like control decks or lots of competitive players be very upset whenever they lose to a mill deck, because of course a mill deck is not tier 1, it's tier like 2 or maybe even 3. I would say this deck is probably tier 2, how it kind of plays out. It definitely dies to more fast decks like mono red decks, mono red aggro decks, things like that. But I do think this deck overall works really, really well. And let's get into the match, guys, and see what we can do. So we have a decent opening hand here with 3 lands and a Psychic Corrosion with Mox Amber and Prophetic Prism with a Metallic Rebuke. So we go for the Mox Amber here, trying to get as many artifacts out as we can for the Metallic Rebuke to hold that up. They go for a tap land. We just pass turn here, holding up the Metallic Rebuke. We could go with the Prophetic Prism there, drawing a card, but we want to hold that for the Psychic Corrosion. Because again, remember, if we draw cards, we have them mill. So they go with another tap land. They go Nardum Renegade, and we just go for Metallic Rebuke. This tells us that they're kind of on an aggro strategy so far, so we're going to see what they actually do in the coming turns. I believe this is an Explore strategy. We're going to go Psychic Corrosion here, and then just pass turn with an Ornithopter off the top. And having a Prophetic Prism with Reverse Engineer in the hand here is super useful. So Patient Rebuilding is also what we top deck into as well. So throwing 6 into the graveyard, laying a land, and passing turn. More than enough mana here to play Patient Rebuilding, so that's what we're going to play the following turn. So just a lot of good milling going on right here, right now. Opponent's super salty at this point. They go with a kill here, walk the plank on an Ornithopter. Attack in for 2. We go for a land and then just go patient rebuilding because that's all we care about. Because we actually have them down pretty low, honestly, and it's only turn 5 in the match. So they're gonna go for a Seeker Squire here and throw a Fatal Push away, and then get in for 3. But at this point in the match, we actually start to draw lots of mana, or lots of cards, because we get to pitch mana into their graveyard. So Prophetic Prism into Inspiring Statuary into Renegade Map. Just a lot of stuff on the battlefield now. And then Ipni Rivulet is actually in our hand as well, so we're just going to be able to completely decimate their life, or their mill here. So they're down to 15. We just go with another Psychic Corrosion and Paradoxical, and opponent scoops it up and doesn't even want to play the second match, and that's it. But that's it for Mono Blue Mill. I really do hope you guys liked the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And comment below on what you should, or what I should cover next as far as another deck tech. Also, in this video, I'm giving away a box of Core Set 2019 right here. I got it right here in front of me. I'm going to give it away to a random commenter below if you like, and subscribe to the channel and comment below. Just let me know if what kind of decks I should cover in the coming weeks. And what do you think of Mill? Do you like Mill? If you hate Mill, that's fine too. You can always say that as well. I'm going to pick a random commenter. And also, the Core Set 2019 also comes with a Nexus of Fate as well. Right there. Whoop. A nice foily. Have it already in a plastic sleeve there for you. But yeah, definitely sending that out after about a week of this video being up on the channel. So really do hope you guys like that. And I'm going to try and do that from now on, where like as soon as a new set comes out, whenever it's like available to be used in paper, I'm going to try and give away a box if I can for paper. Even though this channel is kind of more about Magic the Gathering Online, I still want to be nice to you guys and give away a box for everyone to enjoy. But that's going to do it for the video, guys. Hope you guys liked it. I love you all, and I will see you in the next one. Peace. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more awesome MTG content just like this. And make sure to tap the bell icon to be notified whenever a video is made live. If you want to keep watching content, here are 2 more videos for you. This video and many others are sponsored by MTGOTraders and Cape Fear Games. Buy and sell digital singles to build your online collection today with MTGOTraders, and get your paper singles, accessories, and much more from Cape Fear Games. Whatever your Magic needs, both places have you covered.